to replace it?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if it's possible to, because of basically what you described, and I do agree that men are able to exert force over women. I don't know if it's really ever possible to eliminate the patriarchy. I think that if it were eliminated, egalitarianism would be my preferred system, where there is no one sex that is exerting an undue amount of force on the other, and sort of a
matriarchy. Should there be a matriarchy?
I don't think. I mean, maybe that would be justice, but I don't think that would be my ideal system. No, I think it just.
Why would that be justice?
Well, if we're using the definition of righting a wrong, like the justice system.
Do you mean like revenge?
Yeah,
basically.
Oh, okay.
Revenge,
I don't think that would be my my ideal system.
Sure.
But,
Well, so I would answer the question by saying that whether you like it or not, there is always going to be, if we consider patriarchy to be the dominance of men, that's an inescapable fact. It can be hidden for a while. It can be pretended that it's not true, and people can act as though it's not true, and people can act as though they have a higher set of values that they're moving towards. But ultimately, it will always reduce to force, and the pendulum and clock will always go back the other direction, and men will take rights away from other men and women, and this will always be the cycle. And it has to actually be that way, because what ends up happening is through the form of egalitarianism comes its own special breed of oppression. And that oppression in the ever search and the ever expanse for egalitarianism is what we see now, which is antinatalism and oppression towards male groups, oppression towards specific male groups over other male groups, all in the name of trying to make things equal. And so eventually it all just gets reset with force. This is what we see time and time again as society gets more and more decadent.
Yeah, I don't think that means that feminism shouldn't exist, though. I think just because something is, as you say, inevitable, I think that you should still be able to push back against things and maybe hold them off, I guess is the wrong way to say it. But if it's producing undesirable outcomes for women, then regardless of whether or not it's undesirable
outcomes, do you think that the desirable outcomes are the fact that we went from having a 4% divorce to having a 55% divorce? We went from almost no women having mental illness to 1 in 4 women having mental illness. You think the fact that the female hormone regulation from birth control, which leads to this mental illness, has been good? I mean, I can go on
actually,
and on
I do,
and on.
And I can explain why I think a lot of those things are good.
Okay, I can't wait to hear it.
Higher divorce rate. I think there's probably a lot of women in the past, when there was a 4% divorce rate, that wished they could have gotten divorced, but they felt either through social pressure or they just legally couldn't get divorced, were not able to. And I think that if more women are getting divorced, it's
really bad for children, and we know it's really bad for children because we see what happens when you come from a single mother home, absent a father in the home, and what happens with your criminality, what happens with the end result of children who come out of these environments is really, really bad. And not only that, but here's one of the reasons it's so bad. It's because if women replace the biological father with a stepfather, the chances for exponentially skyrocket, much, much, much higher.
No, I agree with that.
Marriage is about children, not about you. And this is where I have to defer to the evil of feminist ideology. There is nothing that could possibly be considered more virtuous than staving off your own happiness for that of your children.
Do you think happy children are reared in an unhappy marriage, though? Do you really think that that's healthy for children?
Then I would assume that back when we had the 4%, everybody was just
kind of.
Oh, yeah, and you could support this with what other than you just made it up?
I mean, what can you support the fact they weren't all miserable with?
Well, wait a second. I don't have to prove a negative to your positive claim that they were.
I mean, that's true, but we can talk to people who, I mean, my parents are 60 and 75
That's
years
true.
old.
We can go back to the World War II generation and we can talk to them. And their happiness ratings were through the friggin' roof in comparison, and especially the mental illness ratings.
Grid 1 Motorsports